I think it's time for us to start. It is time. We already have a tornado warning. Tornado warning for Leonardville. Okay, let me get this pulled up here. Okay, so you already have a tornado warning for Leonardville. Thankfully, this is mainly rural areas. I got velocity on this side and correlation on the other. We likely did have this touchdown at least earlier. You can clearly see a correlation coefficient drop there, indicating debris right underneath an area of some decently tight rotation. And the tornado warning was continued, but I doubt. Yeah, they completely missed it on the tornado warning. This is the weaker area of rotation. It's definitely a little bit more weaker, but you can still see debris being lofted with some lower correlation coefficients thing. It could also just be the fact that there's not really much precipitation being picked up in that region on a reflectivity. So it's hard to tell, but we definitely did have a tornado on the ground at some point. I'm actually kind of surprised they continued the tornado warning. Oh, I forgot to do the one thing that I always do when I start a live stream. I'll be right back. Alright, well, I'm back, and you guys probably heard that. I have another tornado warning. This is one actually for the morning convection. It's kind of hard to tell because it's so close to the radar side, but you can definitely clearly see some rotation here with very, very strong swath of inflow and rotation up in here. Still no apparent correlation coefficient drop, but we could definitely see this touchdown at any time. So Hillsdale, Carrier, Pond Creek, Jefferson, please take shelter immediately. This is a dangerous situation. Tornado could definitely touch down at any time with this. And then we also have a PDS tornado warning already. The first PDS tornado warning of 2024 for Oklahoma, favoring the potential for some strong to potentially violent tornadoes across this region. We can definitely really clearly see the rotation there. With greens that are going, all these greens and blues are going towards the radar site, while all these reds are moving away from the radar site. You can very clearly see rotation there. Still nothing that would indicate a tornado being on the ground just yet as far as correlation coefficient goes. But we could definitely still see a tornado touchdown at any time with this. If you live in Pond Creek, Jefferson, Medford, Hillsdale, Kremlin, Oklahoma, please take shelter immediately. Again, a tornado could touch down at any time with this system, with this storm. Hold on, I'm about to open up the live stream on my browser so I can watch for chat, because I don't know how well the YouTube one does it. There. But yeah, tornado could definitely touch down at any time with this storm. Again, tornado warning in effect for Hillsdale, Pond Creek, Jefferson, and Medford. And unfortunately, this is probably what it's going to be like all day. We're probably just going to be listing out town names and tornado warnings. Oh, you can really see that hooking up here. You can really see that prominent hook echo there, and a surging RFD, and some really powerful and clear inflow. We probably definitely have this tornado touching down at any time right now. We could probably have it on the ground potentially right now, because there may be a little bit of a correlation coefficient drop there right on the hook echo. This is an extremely well-defined tornado in development here. Again, if you live in Hillsdale, Pond Creek, Jefferson, and Medford, please take shelter immediately. Please, if you live in Hillsdale, to take shelter. This is passing breathtakingly close to Hillsdale. Again, tornado warning in effect for Hillsdale, Kremlin, Pond Creek, and Jefferson, in Medford, Oklahoma. Still an extremely well-defined tornado. Unfortunately, it looks like it's tracking right through Hillsdale, and there's definitely a correlation coefficient drop. There's definitely a tornado on the ground with this storm. Again, if you live in the affected area, please take shelter immediately. There is definitely a tornado on the ground. If you live in the Kremlin, Pond Creek, Jefferson, and Medford, please take shelter immediately. If you live in Hillsdale, please stay in your safe place. Again, this is not a good sight. If I were to smooth it, you could probably, yeah, you'd still see that tornado really well there. A very, very clear hook echo. Very clear and prominent tornado in development and probably ongoing. There's definitely potentially a tornado on the ground right now moving through Hillsdale. If you live in the affected region, please take shelter immediately. If you live in Hillsdale, I hope you are taking shelter. We just got another tornado warning for some place. This was further up north with the with this other storm. This one looks like it's on the ground too. This also looks like there's a tornado on the ground. Yeah, this definitely looks like there's a tornado on the ground right now with this storm. With a correlation coefficient drop indicating debris being lofted in the atmosphere right there. Rotation is a little iffy, but you can clearly see greens next to reds there with our radar sight being down there. It's really hard to tell because it does look like it is mostly confluence. Never mind, you can see it spinning back around here. If anything, I wouldn't be surprised if this was a tornado touching down instead of this. This seems to be a little bit more prominent. I'm trying to figure out what color looks best. Probably this one. But again, definitely, you can definitely see rotation there. And maybe this is the tornado, because that is right on top of the rotation, or it's off a little bit. But this could also be a tornado ongoing. So if you do live in the affected area that does include Olsberg, please take shelter immediately. There's probably a tornado on the ground. Okay, I think this is the rotation that we're watching for. And with that, there's not a clear indicator of it being on the ground. It's also kind of hard to tell because, never mind, it's spinning back around, but you can clearly see our rotation there. It's kind of hard to tell though because our radar sight is down there, so you can kind of tell what it's doing as far as that. So it's kind of more like this out of anything, but there's still definitely rotation. Thank you for tuning in, Naboo. That brings our total up to 3 tornado warnings already. That radar hook was very defined. Yeah, back in the back with this storm, that was an extremely well-defined hook echo. And now extremely well-defined rotation too. And so it's an observed tornado. It's a confirmed tornado now. So if you do live in the affected area, please take shelter immediately. This has been observed and confirmed to be a tornado ongoing. If you live in Pond Creek, Jefferson, Medford, please take shelter immediately. This is a dangerous situation. Now you can clearly see the correlation coefficient drop there. There's definitely a tornado on the ground. Still, there's a very, very well-defined tornado on the ground. Yeah, still an extremely well-defined hook echo. That's about as clear as it gets. I mean, it can get much clearer, but hopefully it doesn't. That's an extremely well-defined hook echo. Again, if you live in Pond Creek, Medford, or Jefferson, please take shelter immediately. Okay, now it's not as defined. It's kind of messy now. But you can still see how there's a hook echo there. Still definitely going to be a tornado up in there. Does look like it may have picked back up. I don't really see anything regarding our correlation coefficient. It is also behind, it appears. It looks like it is behind. Or velocity may be behind a little bit. Nope, never mind, it updated. It's still extremely well-defined rotation there. Green's heading towards the radar site, red's moving away. And this is an extremely well-defined tornado. Again, tornado warning continues for Pond Creek, Jefferson, and Medford. I wouldn't be surprised to see a tornado still on the ground, even though our correlation coefficient is very, very messy right now. Still wouldn't be surprised to see a tornado on the ground right now, especially with the look of that velocity. I like this split screen setup. Yeah, I couldn't really determine if split screen was really the best. I thought about trying to do 4-panel, but I feel like it would just be way too complicated. I feel like there's just way too much going on with this. It would be very confusing. But glad to know that people like the 4-panel or the 2-panel. But still an extremely well-defined area of rotation there. Let's check back up on our other tornado. Still radar indicated. It hasn't been confirmed just yet. Correlation has had an annoying time trying to load recently. Yeah, it definitely looks like there may be a little bit of a correlation coefficient drop there. There could very well be a tornado on the ground right now. It's honestly hard to tell with our correlation coefficient, but there could very well be one on the ground. But it's really hard to tell because it's not really on center with our area of rotation. It is off by a mile or so. But still, tornado warning continues for Oldsburg. Thankfully, it does look like the area of rotation is becoming much more broader and not really tight. But you can still see that there is some really well-defined rotation. Even if it is on more of its broader side of things, we could still see it tighten up and produce a tornado. But if it wants to produce a tornado, it's going to need to get tighter. But still, if you live in Oldsburg, please take shelter immediately. Again, a tornado could come out of the storm, even if it isn't tight, like I was talking about. We could still see a tornado potentially come out of this. Yeah, continuing to get a little bit more, a little bit more defined over time. This is going to be a crazy day of weather. Oh, it definitely is. This is definitely going to be an absolutely crazy day. But it does look like a rotation may be beginning to tighten up a little bit here. Still no indicator of it being on the ground, but it could still touch down at any time, especially at the rate that it's tightening up. If you live in Oldsburg, please take shelter immediately. Let's check back up on our other tornado warning. Oh, not that one. I want the observed one. Still extremely well-defined rotation. Definitely really well-defined rotation there. And just continuing to be well-defined. Very tight rotation. No indicator of it being on the ground, though, but It could very well still touch down though at any time. Especially by the way this velocity looks, by the way this looks on just a velocity. This could definitely be on the ground, even if there's not really that much of a correlation coefficient indicator. If you live in Pond Creek, Jefferson, and Medford, please take shelter immediately. Even if there is no clear indicator of it being on the ground, it could still touch down at any time. I'm in Tulsa, Oklahoma, just waiting for it to start picking up. Yeah, Tulsa is probably going to be impacted like hours later, though. Probably like late evening. I'm also noticing this further up to the north. It looks like we may be getting another velocity couplet, another spin up here. Maybe watching another tornado trying to develop. Oh yeah, that's a very good indicator there. Hold on, let me unsmooth it. Yeah, we could very well see another area rotation. We could be getting a mesocyclone handoff here. This doesn't look like it's a correlation coefficient drop because this is in an area of less reflectivity, so it's gonna have lower correlation coefficient. It's probably not tornadic related, but we probably have a handoff going on here, where this mesocyclone may be getting weaker, maybe handing off to this one further up north. This mesocyclone is probably just going to be sent backwards and absorbed later on. But both look like they could tighten up and strengthen and produce a tornado. Still no indicator of it being on the ground yet, but it could touch down at any time. It did touch down earlier, I think. Again, tornado warning continues for Pond Creek, Jefferson, and Medford. If you live in those affected areas, please take shelter immediately. How's our other tornado warning looking? Oh yeah, that is definitely getting more tight. Definitely getting much more tight there. And I wouldn't be surprised if we can see a correlation coefficient drop here in a second or so if this tightens up a little bit more. But this is definitely this could definitely produce a tornado. If you live in Oldsburg, please take shelter immediately. Again, tornado could touch down at any time with that storm. It's looking more and more concerning. Let's move further down to the south. Let's actually look at some of these other storms that are ongoing. So we have a couple of these cells developing. It does look like we may be trending towards a little bit more of a semi-discrete mode here to discrete mode. These storms are definitely a little bit more on the messy side of things, but we definitely have a couple more discrete storms that could definitely pick up and produce the potential for a strong to potentially violent tornado, depending on what they want to do. These two are particularly interesting to me because they both look like they may be en route to merge here soon, especially with how close proximity they are to each other. This one actually looked like it had a left split and then it merged with the one to the north. What is a discrete storm? A discrete storm is one of these storms that you see that aren't really in like a line, but they're kind of just like all over the place. They're just by themselves. They aren't really attached to any other storms. But then you can also have semi-discrete, where it's kind of discrete, but they're kind of attached to each other, and they may be messy. And then you have messy, where you just have a mess of storms all over the place. This is definitely one of the more messy looks with this one up here. But if we can maintain that discrete mode, we can definitely see a larger risk for tornadoes with some of the other storms. But this tornado warning is going to continue for Pond Creek. Actually, gonna pass to the north of Pond Creek, and potentially head for either Jefferson or Medford. If you live in Jefferson or Medford, please take shelter immediately. We could definitely see a tornado come out of this. As far as our reflectivity goes, we definitely have our rotation winding down quite a bit, though. It's definitely not as clear. We still definitely have winds that are moving towards the radar site in a way, but there's no clear indicator of rotation. It's kind of just sliding past each other instead of really rotating. Actually, with the radar site being back there, it probably looks more like this, with these reds moving away and these greens moving towards. If we can see a much stronger wind gust in a more localized area out of the west here, that can in turn push air further back into the storm and begin rotating. And that's definitely a possibility with this, but I don't think that's going to happen. They're probably going to let this tornado warning expire. We still have our tornado warning to the north, though. And this is definitely getting a whole lot more tight, and maybe even has a correlation coefficient drop there. There may be a little bit of debris being lofted, but if you live in Oldsburg, please take shelter immediately. Definitely a dangerous situation. If there isn't a tornado on the ground right now, which there very well could be, depending on the next correlation coefficient scan, one could still touch down at any time. Still, like, an extremely clear indicator of a tornado on potentially developing, maybe even not already on the ground. We'll have to wait for the next correlation coefficient scan to see if there's debris being lofted or not. Thankfully, it doesn't look like there isn't. Thankfully, it looks like there isn't a whole lot of debris, or it may not be on the ground just yet. But based on our velocity and the look of our rotation, I wouldn't be surprised if it were to touch down. Our new velocity scan that we just got, it definitely looks a little bit more messy, a little bit more on the messy side of things, but you can still see that it is clearly rotating. Yeah, there's potentially a tornado trying to develop here. If you live in Oldsburg, please take shelter immediately. But thankfully, for the next good couple miles or so, it's going to be tracking through relatively empty land, mainly rural areas, for what seems to be around 17 miles. So it definitely has the potential for it to wind down over time. Does a correlation coefficient drop if it drop much if it's in a field? It can, especially if there's like barns or stuff around. But typically, in a correlation coefficient, if it's in the field, it probably looks more like this, but it could definitely get pretty deep. I don't think I can pull up any examples, but you'll definitely notice it, especially if it's right underneath right underneath the rotation and it's pretty well defined. Thankfully, this doesn't look to be a correlation coefficient drop because it is right in an area of less reflectivity. So it's probably not picking up debris. It's probably just picking up nothing. Or a lack of something. Still gonna track this though, because this is also offset from where our rotation is. It's definitely not on top of our rotation, so it's probably not our correlation coefficients drop. We would definitely see it pretty well defined, especially with how clear it is. This is not a lack of correlation. This is not a drop in correlation coefficient. This is probably still nothing. But still, a tornado could definitely touch down at any time with the storm. So if you do live in the warning path, please take shelter immediately. But thankfully, it's going to track the mainly rural areas from here on out. So it definitely has time for it to wind down. Is there anything else that's really going on? Nope, that other tornado warning expired. We also did get another tornado watch for southern Iowa into northern Missouri there. But man, is it really rampant. Man, is it really beginning to ramp up across the Oklahoma region. I didn't mean to do that. This actually looks like it may be beginning to start hooking. We'll have to watch that though. Yeah, it definitely looks like it may be trying to hook here, but there's no apparent rotation. There is this, though. This does look like it has a pretty defined hook echo, and maybe some developing rotation there. This one is pretty far down to the south, though. Yeah, it's definitely looking to be getting much more messy, much more on the messy side of things here. Still no indicator of a tornado being on the ground with this storm though, but it still could touch down at any time. So if you do, if you do live in the warning box, please take shelter immediately. We got another tornado warning. For not that one. For here. Oh, that's some really well-defined rotation there. It is farther from the radar site, so it is kind of hard to see, but you can definitely see rotation pretty clear, but there's no indicator of it being on the ground just yet, but it could still touch down at any time. Thankfully, this does look like it is going to move into mainly rural areas after it passes by Hiawatha. So if you live in Hiawatha, please take shelter immediately. I don't know how to pronounce that. Been really bad with town names recently for some reason. Okay, it's Hiawatha. This town is called Hiawatha. If you live in Hiawatha, Kansas, please take shelter immediately. We could definitely see a tornado touchdown at any time with this. There's no clear indicator of it being on the ground just yet, but that's still a nasty look from our velocity. Definitely some clear rotation. Yeah, that definitely has a nasty look to it, though. So we could definitely see it touchdown at any time. Let's look at mesoanalysis here. Let's look at our mesoanalysis page, see what our environment looks like. We still have yet for us to really begin picking up here, but we definitely have some really crazy energy. Let's see, next value readings. Upwards of 5 to 4, especially with that more clustered area of storms. And to the north, we have upwards of 4 along that warm frontal region, which is where the two storms that we last looked at with that tornado warning, both tornado warnings, have been. That's where they have fired along. All of these storms you see here, kind of messy, but hold on. Let me actually turn it to reflectivity so you can make better sense of it. But all these storms that you see here are along the warm front. So they're definitely a little bit more on the messy side of things. Okay, I'm gonna take a couple minutes so I can get the word out about that one tornado watch. All right. Well, we still have our 2 other tornado warnings that we were looking at before I had to go do this thing with a tornado watch. So with the previous one, it does look like it is still tracking through mainly rural areas. It doesn't look like there's an indicator of it being on the ground just yet, but there's still definitely some tight but more messy rotation. You could definitely still see a tornado come out of that. If you live in Wheaton, please take shelter immediately. We also have this tornado warning that continues for mainly rural areas. Still some very, very strong tornado indicators there. Definitely could still see a tornado come out of this, but we don't have an indicator from correlation coefficient that would indicate it's on the ground just yet. And let's actually switch over to not satellite. Actually, no, we can look at satellite. Wow, these are some really discrete storms. Oops. Wait, where? There we go. Let me turn on the MRMS, the composite radar, so we can see what it's saying. Yeah, these are some pretty discrete storms, much more discrete than I actually previously anticipated. And it's already showing the HRRR up for size. This is definitely not indicative of what the HRRR models were indicating. We also have another tornado warning, but we have multiple discrete cells all over the place that could all harbor the potential for tornadoes. I wonder what the HRRR is saying now. Yeah, still indicating that much more discrete mode, with some storms that are kind of there while others aren't. But they'll probably form at least later on. Still very indicative of that more discrete mode. Still trending. If that continues that way, we may be able to get a risk upgrade. That's definitely not out of the question, especially with how conducive in this environment is. We also have this other tornado warning to the south here. Thankfully, that's for mainly rural areas. Actually, no, the small town of Benjamin is in the path, but it doesn't look like it's immediately in the path. This does look like it is going to track to the north of Benjamin, thankfully. With the RFD here, the RFD wind gusts here, that is kind of pushing it into more slightly northeast trajectory. But that should keep it in mainly rural areas, thankfully. There's no clear indicator of it being on the ground because it's kind of far from any radar site. But it could be on the ground. That's definitely some pretty decent rotation. Yeah, this is just still very a very defined rotation as well. It's not terribly defined, but it's definitely there. You can definitely see it pretty well. But our radar site is definitely pretty far away from the storm itself. This storm's still tracking through mainly rural areas. Still no indicator of it being on the ground. This is that other tornado warning that's kind of been going for a while. Then we also have this one as well. That is still pretty indicative of it being on the ground, and it's definitely harder to tell if its correlation coefficient, if it has a correlation coefficient drop or not, because it is farther from the radar site. We can definitely tell pretty well that there is none, so it's definitely not on the ground, but definitely could touch down at any time with a look at that rotation. But we have multiple severe thunderstorm warnings already, and they're in that discrete pattern as I was talking about. We may continue to see more upscale growth here soon. Yeah, now it just looks like they're issuing severe thunderstorm warnings out the wazoo. It may be this one for this one that hasn't expired yet, but if they're warning it for this little thing for 1-inch hail, then no way. This one looks interesting. This one has an interesting look to it. This one to the south has both of them actually have a hook, and this one's actually in its rear flank. So its rain and wind gusts from its downdraft may be able to merge with its RFD and rapidly increase the risk for tornado with that. The one to the north there. But a lot of these already have some really well defined hooks. We just got another tornado warning. It's just a continuation of this one. I'm gonna have to turn off smoothing. I just can't really stand it, to be honest. Yeah, a lot of these storms have some really nice hooks on them and could definitely begin trying to rotate out least. But what we will do here is we'll pull up the 4 panel again, or not the 4 panel, but the 2 panel. This one still has some really nice rotation on it as well. Still no indicator of it being on the ground, but could still touch down with at any time. And unfortunately, it's not moving into mainly rural areas anymore. It's still in mainly rural areas, but it's moving towards a couple of towns, including White Cloud Forest City, Oregon, and Mound City. If you live in those cities, please take shelter immediately. There are some pilot reports of severe turbulence in some areas. Yeah, I mean, of course there would be, especially in more specific areas than others. There's some insane machine learning stuff, or AI. The AI machine learning NATOcast, the AI that does that sort of thing, it went past 60% tornado risk and is now indicating black. That I don't know what the black is supposed to indicate, but it's not even on the chart. This is definitely a dangerous situation, though. Yeah, we definitely have some pretty discrete storms all over the place, really. They definitely need to become a little bit more robust. Where is it indicating off the scale blackness? I can pull it up real quick. I don't think it's copyright, but just to be sure, this is not my stuff. Whatever I'm about to show you, NATOcast does not belong to me, so, oh, apparently, okay, apparently, they said that black is the secret 90% that they don't have on the chart for some reason, but I'll show it. Keep in mind that this is not mine, by the way. This is not mine. I'll just screenshot it here and I'll pull it up on stream. Alright, here we go. Right here. That's in it. That's apparently their secret 90% contour. Or 90% tornado risk. And that's definitely scary to see because NATOcast definitely did a really good job at predicting the last tornado outbreak up in this region yesterday that we covered. It definitely predicted that really well with a 15% and also a 30% tornado risk that they had for that region. Our storms up there definitely performed like it was a high risk, while the SBC kept it as an enhanced risk. So I'm scared what the NATOcast may be saying for today, because this is definitely not a good look, especially if it's able to if it's able to predict something like that. Hopefully that doesn't mean El Reno is going to get another 2.6 mile wide. I don't know. I mean, that is more of a historic thing, so probably not. But I mean, you don't know with these type of days. I'm pretty sure El Reno was a 10% tornado risk. I think. I don't remember. But it all depends on the environment. And I would say the environment's definitely conducive for that sort of thing, I would say. But we continue to see these tornado warnings for White Cloud, Forest City, Oregon, and Bound City. If you live in these affected areas, please take shelter immediately. Again, a tornado could touch down at any time with this, even if it's not indicated as of right now. But a tornado could still touch down with this at any time. Further to the north, I am watching this. I have kind of seen this rotating a little bit. Don't think it meets tornado warning criteria just yet, but it's possible that it could reach those strengths. As far as that other tornado warning, this one's kind of just been all over the place. It's been getting overall much more messy, but it does look like it may be trying to wind down a little bit, but still rotating. But with our radar site being here, it definitely does look like it may be a little bit more confluence than it is really rotation. I'm actually surprised they just extended the tornado warning for some reason for a much larger area too. Because right now it looks very broad. It's strong, but it's very broad and not tight at all. And it looks like the wind's mainly just running into each other and sliding past each other and not really rotating. But still no like indicative indicator that a tornado would be on the ground. But with the newest velocity scan, you can really clearly see that that's pretty well defined. Definitely some pretty well defined rotation there. The newest velocity scan. I can't say that there is a tornado on the ground just yet, because I don't think that's a correlation coefficient drop. Yeah, that's not a correlation coefficient drop because there's a lack of reflectivity there, lack of the radar site picking up anything, so it's going to have a lower correlation coefficient. So that's probably not a tornado on the ground. But we could still see one touchdown at any time with this. Still see a tornado touchdown with this storm. So if you do live in the affected area, that does include a bunch of small towns mainly. Corning, Neuchâtel, Onag, Havensville, Soldier, Circleville. A bunch of these small towns in Kansas. If you live in those affected regions, please take shelter immediately. Again, tornado could still touch down at any time. All right. We also have our 4 p.m. update coming here soon, or 3 p.m. for people living in the Central Plains. Actually, no. Yeah, 3 p.m. for people living in the Central Plains. I forgot I'm in the East Coast. So I saw 3 p.m. on my computer. I was like, what? But no, it's 3 p.m. for the Central Plains and 4 p.m. for my location. That definitely is going to be interesting. That's definitely going to be an interesting outlook. And we're continuing to get tornado warnings too. Okay, that other storm I was talking about just got a tornado warning. That one that I was talking about to the north there, it doesn't look as conducive, but it does look like maybe a little bit tighter. Where am I studying meteorology at? I'm not studying anywhere just yet. I am mostly self-taught. The majority of it is self-taught, but I am pretty confident in my self-teaching abilities. But I do plan on going to the Oklahoma University when I get out of high school. University of Oklahoma. The main thing I'm scared about is the fact that there's going to be an insane amount of math involved, and I'm not excited for that, to be honest. But you know, you gotta do what you gotta do to get a degree. Love their campuses. Yeah, I did look at Google Maps because I wanted to know what it looked like before I actually go there. It seems pretty good. It seems pretty nice. But as far as these tornado warnings, there's still nothing that would indicate a tornado on the ground. But it's also far from the radar site as of right now. But still, definitely some really, 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 some sorry, what am I trying to say? There's some really indicative rotation here still. It's definitely tight and pretty strong, especially in the upper levels of the atmosphere. We're definitely looking at more of the upper levels of this storm because it is so far from the radar site. Nope, that's not my measuring tool. Because it's so far from the radar site. It's almost 100 miles away. It's at least 90 miles away from the radar site. Their dorms are pretty mid though. I don't plan on living in a dorm room when I go. I do not want to be stuck in dorm rooms. Plus, I also have a dog that I'll be taking with me, so the dorm rooms are probably not gonna allow them or allow my dog. So either way, I just don't want to live in a dorm room. Those aren't good. But still, some a really nice rotation here, especially in that more northern storm here. That's definitely tightening up a little bit more. If you live in Barada, Barada. If you live in Barada, Nebraska here, definitely make sure you're taking shelter because this is definitely tightening up a little bit more. You could definitely see a tornado touchdown at any time with this. There's no clear indicator of it being on the ground, but it is also extremely far from the radar site, and we're looking at the more upper levels of the storm right now. Same with this one. Definitely some really nice rotation on this one, but still no clear indicator of it being on the ground though. But we'll watch though because it is a little bit more on the messy side. There are a couple areas that are standing out to me, but it's not necessarily too concerning just yet, and it's not really right in your face like, hey, there's a tornado right here on correlation coefficient just yet. But it could definitely be like that in the future if this continues to strengthen. But if you live in Mound City, Forest City, Oregon, and Fortescue, I think, please take shelter immediately. Again, tornado could definitely touch down at any time with this storm if it hasn't already. Then we also have another tornado warning to the south as well. I think that brings our tornado. Yeah, that brings our tornado warning count to 5. Not 56 for those of you that just saw that there for a moment. That was not. We do not have 56 tornado warnings. We also have some massive hail with this storm, upwards of 2.5 inches. But we definitely have a really nice area of rotation here. Definitely some really strong rotation. It's going to become clearer and clearer the closer it gets to the radar site too. Thankfully this is passing through mainly rural areas though. I can't really put a finger on if this is if there is a tornado on the ground or not just yet. It's really messy as far as correlation coefficient. Does this have a observed tag yet? No, it's still radar indicated. So there's nothing that would there's nothing confirming a tornado. And it's hard to tell if there's really anything as far as rotation, or sorry, as far as correlation coefficient drop. Doesn't really look like there's anything too apparent that would indicate a tornado on the ground just yet. We also have a special weather statement for some reason. Never mind, it was just upgraded to a severe thunderstorm warning. Yeah, I'm actually kind of surprised this doesn't have rotation on it, or at least or tornado warning, or at least actually, I think it's just barely not enough to indicate a tornado. I definitely think that this may get a tornado warning here soon, potentially, but there's nothing that indicates a tornado on the ground just yet, which is good. It's also fairly broad, and kind of more on the weaker end side of things because it's not tight really. You see all those the gray regions in between our reds and our greens. That's where our winds aren't really moving that much, and we typically see that on broader areas of rotation. If it were to get a tornado warning, it would definitely need to tighten up a little bit more. But this is definitely not enough criteria to really meet a tornado warning. I'm surprised that the severe thunderstorm warning doesn't at least have a tornado possible signature on it though. But man, we have a ton of severe thunderstorm warnings right now. But yeah, this is... I bet you know who Pico's Hank is. Yeah, Pico's Hank is a pretty cool dude. I don't know him personally, but I do know his content on YouTube. Currently at 4 tornado warnings and 16 severe thunderstorm warnings. But we continue to see these other tornado warnings here continued. Doubt this one's really going to be continued because it's... I don't really see any apparent rotation at all with that one. This one, though, I think that could continue, even though it is beginning to wind down a little bit more. But could see it strengthen back up here soon, I think. If you live in Mound City, Oregon, or Forest City, please take shelter immediately. Could still see a tornado come out of this. We also have this here. This area is getting extremely messy over time. It still has rotation on it, though. You can definitely still see that it does have rotation on it, but it is getting much, much more messy. I don't know what they'll do with this, to be honest. This is an extremely messy thing. It also looks like it is winding down a little bit more. There's still no indicator of a tornado being on the ground with that just yet. You still have a tornado warning to the south, and I think this is overall the most clear indicator of a tornado out of all the tornado warnings so far. And it's still... a little bit more on the lower end side of things, especially compared to what it was earlier, but we could maybe see a tornado come out of this. I just have no idea what's going on with their correlation coefficient. It's way too contaminated to really tell if there's a tornado on the ground or not. So yeah, as far as our velocity, there's also not really a lot to suggest a tornado on the ground yet either, because it's not really that tight. It's just not really that tight. All right, I changed our chat mode to I turned off subscribers only, because I want to have a little bit more action in the chat, especially if I'm going to be doing this for hours on end tonight. But yeah, we're going to continue to watch these tornado warnings, see how this overall risk for severe thunderstorms is going to progress. I'm also noticing this area of rotation. This may become the new thing that's going to be watched here soon. Let's also look at our meso-analysis here. Let's see what's going on. Start off with our 700 millibars. Let's look at our low-level jet. It's not working, actually. Okay, there we go. Hello? Okay, that's one of our low-level jets. Why is our meso-analysis so slow? I hate the little heart thing in the corner of the chat. It makes it so hard to see a portion of the most recent chat, and it's just too annoying. I mean, yeah, this is what's currently going on. Yeah, we're probably going to continue to see a discrete development here slowly over time. But this is also what it's indicating is going to happen later, or is happening. What's happening right now with what you're seeing there, and this is what's happening right now, and then this is what's supposed to be happening right now. Definitely think if we can maintain that discrete mode, then we could definitely see a much larger risk for tornadoes. Man, yeah, these violent tornado parameter space is just off the charts. This is just crazy. It was already crazy earlier on in the afternoon too, or earlier on this morning. It was crazy. There were some really high violent tornado parameters things across this region, but I also don't know why our mesoanalysis is being so slow. But we have a lot of instability across this region. This little chunk of storms, this little area of storms down to the south here, that is indicating 4,500 joules per kilogram of instability right now. This is definitely crazy. Still waiting on our 4 p.m. outlook, which should happen at 4 p.m. here soon in, I think, 40 minutes, 45 minutes, I think. Actually, no, not 45 minutes. 25 minutes, I think. If they were going to upgrade to a high risk, I think they would have told us already, though. That's the thing. Okay, there was a confirmed tornado to the northwest of Highland, Kansas. Yeah, this is, oh, we got another tornado warning. Let's switch back over to Radar Mega here. It has to be either a continuation of one of these tornado warnings. Yeah, it's a continuation of some of these. It immediately disappeared. I saw that warning cone there for a moment. Not sure where it went, but it's not there anymore. Yeah, there it is. So, tornado warning continues. This is definitely a really strong rotation area here too as well. But this is definitely some pretty broad and strong rotation, and this is also the upper levels of the atmosphere, so it's a little bit broader than what would be at the surface. It's hard to tell, but it does look like there may be a little bit of a correlation coefficient drop there. Let's see. Could also be very highly contaminated as well, especially with the look of that precipitation. Okay, we got another tornado warning. This one's new. Okay, yeah. So we have a tornado warning for Newkirk, in Oklahoma, northern Oklahoma here. Definitely some really strong inflow here. Definitely a really strong area of inflow, and you could definitely see some pretty tight rotation there as well. Definitely some really tight rotation. Where's our radar? What radar site are we on? We're in the Wichita one. Okay. Yeah. So all of this, all these blues and greens that you're seeing, these are all moving towards the radar site. That was a terrible arrow. These are all moving towards the radar site. While this area of inflow here, this large swath of blue, this is all inflow that's feeding the rotation here. All of this is being fed into the storm. And then you also have, it's hard to tell, but there is definitely an RFD wind gust here that is causing all this wind to be pushed into, all this moist warm air to be pushed into the tornado. And so we definitely have an area of some pretty strong rotation here. But correlation coefficient is just way too contaminated to really say for sure if there's a tornado on the ground or not. But if you do live in the affected area that does include Newkirk, please take shelter immediately. Even if there isn't a tornado on the ground just yet, there could definitely be one in the next couple minutes. So definitely make sure you are taking shelter if you live in the affected area. And that brings our total tornado warning count up to 6. And we have 13 severe thunderstorm warnings. And then we also have this. This is also a kind of a weirder case here. You can definitely see some rotation here on our velocity. Definitely see a little bit of rotation. But it's just so contaminated on our correlation coefficient. Correlation coefficiency there. Also, I wouldn't be surprised to see a potential tornado warning come out of this storm in the next minute or so. It's definitely fairly broad, but it's definitely really strong as well. There also may be a little bit of a correlation coefficient drop as well, so there may potentially be a tornado on the ground. So if you do live in Knox City or O'Brien, please take shelter immediately. There definitely may get a tornado warning out of that in a second here. But looking at this storm from another radar site, there's not a clear indicator of it being on the ground. I hate that from our radar site we had a contamination beam region that just went right through our rotation. Yeah, honestly, kind of odd that they continue this tornado warning, to be honest. This isn't really a look for a tornado. There's weak rotation. It's not really strong. I definitely don't think it meets the criteria for a tornado warning there. You can definitely tell that it definitely has a hooking feature. You definitely see the RFD here and the inflow notch with our rotation being right here. But it's just not clear, really. Just doesn't meet the criteria for a tornado warning. But up to the north here, we do have another tornado warning for northern Nebraska or northern Oklahoma here. Again, tornado warning in effect for Newkirk, Oklahoma here. Definitely has some really strong rotation, but there's just way too much contamination to really say for certain if it's a tornado on the ground or not. I would wait for a observed signature on it to really tell if it's on the ground or not. It's just too much contamination on our correlation coefficient to really indicate a tornado on the ground. But definitely has some really strong rotation and some really strong inflow fueling the storm, especially aloft. We are looking at more of the upper level portions of that, more upper level regions of the storm, probably around 700 millibars to 500 millibars, which is a couple thousand feet up. But I definitely have some really strong inflow winds here fueling the storm. But again, tornado warning continues for Newkirk in northern Oklahoma. Could definitely see a tornado touchdown at any time with the storm. Definitely make sure you're taking shelter. If you live in this affected region, a tornado could definitely touch down at any time with this storm. Even if it hasn't already, which it could be already. That's definitely some really strong rotation. Further up to the north here, I don't even know what they're doing anymore. This one is weird. It's just so far from any radar site now that it's picking up the most extreme portions of the atmosphere here. I would have to use base velocity, I think. Yeah. I still don't even know what's going on, really. This is so messy. There's probably at least a little bit of rotation, but I don't know if they'll continue this tornado warning because of just how messy and how it's just so uncertain whether or not it's a tornado warning. Also have this up here. Interesting thing is that this also went tornado warned again. Both of these storms are currently tornado warned. Tornado warning continues for Mayland and Bernard, Missouri here in northwestern Missouri, as well as another tornado warning for Clearmont and Pickering and Hopkins, northwestern Missouri as well. It's definitely harder to tell because of how far away it is from the radar site. There may be a little bit of a correlation coefficient drop, but it's really far from the radar site, and there's going to be overall more contamination, so it's really hard to tell. But again, if you do live in the affected region, that does include Hopkins, Pickering, Clearmont, Burling Junction, please take shelter immediately, because even if there isn't a tornado on the ground already, then there could very well be one in the next couple minutes. And then again for that one for the South Mayland and Bernard, again, definitely make sure you're taking shelter with that other tornado warning. This one may potentially be on the ground as well. It definitely looks like there may be a little bit of a correlation coefficient drop there. That other alert that we just heard, that was for this one here. That was for this tornado warning here. Just got extended.
Hey everyone, Jay Warner Wallop.
Oops, I didn't mean to click that. I'm scrolling through Twitter to see if there's any updates from either the SPC or anyone else about a tornado. Okay, but yeah, tornado warning continues for Newkirk, as well as Caw Nation. I don't know if Caw Nation is a city. Yeah, it's not a city. Hopefully, after Newkirk, it'll pass through mainly rural areas. But again, tornado warning continues for Newkirk. If you live in Newkirk, please make sure you're still staying in your safe place. But there's just way too much contamination to really indicate if there's a tornado on the ground or not. But there could very well be one on the ground. If you live in Newkirk, please stay in your safe space. I hope you were already taking shelter. But it's just way too contaminated to really tell if there's a tornado on the ground or not. And we also have a couple other tornado warnings that have just been sticking. This one here really just doesn't want to give up. Oh, this is an observed tornado warning now. So this has been confirmed to be on the ground now. And it's a perfect time for my radar omega to break. What is even going on? Hold on, I'm gonna need to restart radar omega. Okay, so apparently this is a confirmed tornado on the ground right now. I can't really confirm that. It does look like there may be a couple areas where there is a lower end correlation coefficient here. So there definitely could potentially be a tornado on the ground. But it's just so messy. It's just extremely hard to really definitively say if there is or not. So it's also not really a really nice hook look. The hook is kind of messy as well as the rotation. It's just way too uncertain to say, but it does have an observed tag on it for some reason. Especially when our radar keeps doing stuff like this. It's just way too hard to tell if it's a tornado on the ground or not. But definitely make sure if you're in that warning area, that does include Capioma, or Granada. Please take shelter immediately because there could definitely be a tornado that may touch down at any time if not already. And then we also have these other two tornado warnings that are still in a very bad environment, still extremely far from any radar site to really definitively say if there's a tornado on the ground or not. But definitely looks like there is definitely some strong rotation with both of these storms here. But there's no way that you can definitively say if there's a tornado on the ground or not. So definitely make sure you're taking shelter if you live in these affected areas. Again, that is Bernard, Missouri, and Hopkins, Missouri. And we also have this one far to the south as well. I'm still surprised they continue this tornado warning. I can't really see much criteria met to support a tornado. I mean, there is definitely rotation there, but it's weak. It's very weak. yeah, we're gonna continue to watch these storms, especially this one, because I don't honestly really know too well what's going on with this. This is an area of weak rotation being tornado warned. No definitive way of saying if there's a tornado on the ground or not. It doesn't look like there is. Okay, from this other radar site here, though, you can definitely tell that there is rotation. It definitely strengthened on the next velocity, on this newest velocity scan here. Okay, that tornado warning has continued to be extended. This thing's about to track into Missouri as well. It's been so long track. Again, tornado warning continues for this storm. For Hawaii, Fairview, Padonia. Please take shelter immediately if you live in those affected regions. And these two other areas of rotation as well with this storm. Definitely some strong rotation on both of these storms. This one looks like it may potentially be on the ground. Definitely looks like there may be a messy correlation coefficient drop there. So if you do live in the affected area, that does include Bernard, Missouri, as well as Hopkins, Missouri. Please take shelter immediately. Because even if there isn't a tornado on the ground right now, it could definitely touch down at any time. This tornado warning has also been continued, but it's also has gotten the observed signature on it. So there has been a confirmed tornado on the ground with this storm. Okay, so this tornado warning has been confirmed to actually have a tornado on the ground with it. I can definitely see that because there's definitely some really strong and tight rotation there. So if you do live in Silverdale or Maple City, Kansas, please take shelter immediately as there is a tornado on the ground at this time that has been confirmed. So definitely make sure you're taking shelter if you live in Silverdale or Maple City. Definitely make sure you take shelter immediately. We're also minutes away from our update. Oh, this is a PDS tornado warning. So this is a PDS tornado warning that has been confirmed to be on the ground. There has been a strong to potentially violent tornado that has been confirmed on the ground moving through this region. So if you do live in the affected area, please take shelter immediately. Again, this is a particularly dangerous situation. PDS tornado warning here. Again, Silverdale and Maple City, please take shelter immediately. A tornado has been confirmed to be on the ground moving through this region. We're also 2 minutes out from our next Outlook update. I do think that there's overall a less potential of them upgrading to a high risk now. But this is definitely some intense and pretty indicative rotation here. But again, PDS tornado warning now in effect for PDS tornado warning now in effect for Silverdale, Maple City, and I think, yeah, Vinton, Kansas here. If you live in the affected area, please seek shelter. Seek shelter immediately. This is a particularly dangerous situation, as there is a tornado on the ground at this time that has been confirmed to be moving through this area. Correlation coefficient is just way too contaminated, so I'll switch this side to reflectivity and this side to velocity. But again, if you do live in the affected area, again, that's Silverdale, Maple City, and Vinton, Kansas here, please take shelter immediately. Again, that's Silverdale, Vinton, and Maple City. Again, particularly dangerous situation for this region. Again, definitely make sure you're taking shelter if you live in the affected area. Again, a strong, potentially violent tornado has been confirmed to be moving through this region. If you definitely need to be taking shelter if you live in the affected area. We're at 8 tornado warnings now. Again, tornado, PDS tornado warning, particularly dangerous situation for Silverdale, Maple, and Vinton. You can definitely see that there is some really tight rotation there. There's definitely a tornado on the ground. Again, it has been confirmed. If you live in Silverdale, Maple City, or Vinton, Kansas, please take shelter immediately. Again, a strong to potentially violent tornado has been confirmed to be moving through this region. Again, this is a particularly dangerous situation. Again, tornado has been confirmed. I definitely see really, really tight, really strong rotation there. Again, definitely a confirmed tornado. Okay, and we got another tornado warning for somewhere. It's a continued tornado warning for this storm here. I think, no, it wasn't. Okay, we have an additional tornado warning now backing the storm. That's extremely messy. Extremely messy tornado warning along the warm front here. Definitely now see some areas of rotation here. We definitely have a hook developing. It is still extremely messy, but you can see how that hook is coming around in the reflectivity here. You can see how that hook is circling around. Again, tornado warning in effect for Centralia and Seneca, Kansas there. Again, tornado warning in effect. Please take shelter immediately if you live in the affected area. For any of these tornado warnings, definitely make sure you're taking shelter immediately. You also have another tornado warning up to the north here with this more discrete cell. Very unprominent rotation, very weak rotation, but we may be able to get a tornado out of it, at least a weak one. But again, this storm does have a confirmed tornado on it. Definitely some really strong rotation here. If you live in Silverdale, Vinton, or Maple City, please take shelter immediately. Again, a strong to potentially violent tornado has been confirmed on the ground. And we should get our day 1 outlook, our outlook for our severe thunderstorm risk here in a moment. Should see that tornado warning here in just a second. or not severe, not tornado warning, but update for our severe weather risk. So yeah, again, PDS tornado warning for Silverdale, Vinton, and Maple City. If you live in the affected area, please take shelter immediately. Again, a large and potentially dangerous tornado has been confirmed to be on the ground. Again, this is a particularly dangerous situation for Silverdale, Vinton, and Maple City. Again, PDS tornado warning in effect still. Apparently, we have another one somewhere else in Kansas. Oh, never mind. It's just these two tornado warnings. We also have a third one here. Are both PDS tornado warnings. But again, PDS tornado warning in effect for Silverdale, Maple City. Again, a tornado has been confirmed on the ground. Definitely make sure you're taking shelter immediately if you live in the affected region. Definitely some really strong rotation there. We're still waiting on our SPC update. They have maintained the moderate risk. It has not been upgraded. Yeah, 15% tornado risk is still in effect, but there's hasn't been an upgrade in our tornado risk. Still at 15%. Again, PDS tornado warning continues for Silverdale, Maple City. Large and potentially harmful tornado has been confirmed to be on the ground. Potentially strong as well has been confirmed to be on the ground moving through this region. If you live in the affected area, please stay weather alert. What is my phone doing? But again, confirmed large and potentially deadly tornadoes on the ground right now. This is a PDS, a particularly dangerous situation for Silverdale, Maple City, and Vinton. Wait. What did... Hold on. Let me read through this with you guys. Actually, no, I'm gonna hold off on that while we cover our PDS tornado warning that's still ongoing. Again, particularly dangerous situation for Silverdale, Maple City, and Vinton. Thankfully, it doesn't look like it is winding down. So there isn't. It doesn't look like there's too much of a concern, but there's definitely probably still a tornado on the ground at this time. Again, a large, potentially dangerous tornado has been confirmed. Potentially strong as well. It's definitely moving through mainly rural areas, but definitely has the potential to impact either Silverdale, Vinton, or Maple City. If you live in these affected areas, please take shelter immediately. Again, confirmed tornado with that. And we also have a really, really broad tornado warning with this storm for some reason. This is extremely messy, though. And a very weird shape for a tornado warning. Oh, this one definitely has some really strong rotation here for Knox City here. There has been a confirmed tornado with this storm to the north of Knox City, northwest of Knox City. If you live in the affected area, please take shelter immediately. Again, that does include Monday, Texas. That is some really powerful rotation. Definitely make sure you're taking shelter if you live in the affected area. But yeah, tornado warnings are just continuing to go out the wazoo here. Just absolutely crazy. So many of them. But again, tornado warning continues for many, many other locations. We still have that PDS tornado warning for the Vinton region, Silverdale, Maple City. Thankfully, it does look like it is winding down. But there could definitely still potentially be a tornado on the ground with this. So if you do live in the affected area, please take shelter immediately. There still could be a tornado on the ground. There definitely was a confirmed one earlier. So if you live in Vinton, Silverdale, or Maple City, please take shelter immediately. Also have another tornado warning. It's extremely broad and very, very messy areas of rotation. May potentially be a tornado on the ground, though. It's really hard to tell. But you have this little protruding area here with a lower area of correlation coefficient. May indicate maybe a tornado on the ground, but I don't even know where I'm looking for a rotation right now. It's just so messy. We're currently at 11 tornado warnings, 17 severe thunderstorm warnings. There's really tornado warnings just going absolutely crazy all over the all over this place. Still don't even really know what's going on with these. We can definitely see that there's a tornado on the ground with this. Definitely looks like there may be debris being lofted in the atmosphere with this. Definitely looks like there may be a little bit of a correlation coefficient drop amongst some pretty strong rotation there. Does have some uncertainty, especially with the fact that it is right underneath a with it being so far from the radar site there. So what I wanted to say about the SBC thing, I'll show you this and this, and then I gotta go take care of something. With this, we're looking for one thing here. While some uncertainty about storm mode and interactions limit predictability for a higher tornado probability, the environment remains favorable for strong and potentially long-track tornadoes, very large hail, and more discrete supercells into tonight. So if that uncertainty can be cleared up, then there definitely may be the potential for a higher tornado probability. But the main risk is going to happen later on this afternoon. But a lot of these supercells are definitely really well defined. Mainly the ones further down to the south, there's a couple that are extremely messy. I just don't really hold that much confidence for the more messy ones. So they continued this tornado warning. It is no longer PDS though, but still tornado warning continues in effect for Vinton, Silverdale, and Maple City. If you live in the affected areas, please take shelter immediately. Okay. Sorry, my mic was muted, but we do have a PDS tornado warning in effect for Monday here. I do know that this is a confirmed tornado. We do have a confirmed potentially large and potentially strong tornado. This is definitely a look of strong rotation here, just to the north of Monday. If it were to take a sharp southeast turn, which hopefully it doesn't, then it could definitely impact. But it, uh, uh, but definitely make sure you're taking shelter if you live in the affected area. Again, that's Monday, Texas. Definitely a large and potentially a strong tornado with that as well. Definitely a very strong look. We also have this tornado warning here for some weaker rotation, but this is apparently an observed tornado warning. And I can't really confirm that with correlation coefficient, but apparently there has been a confirmed tornado, mainly tracking through rural areas, which is good. And then that other PDS tornado warning still seems to be ongoing. It's still observed, and I can see why. If you live in Dexter, please take shelter immediately. Definitely some really tight, really strong rotation there. Definitely probably a tornado on the ground with that right now. I can't really confirm that with correlation coefficient because we have a beam of contamination there. Plus, right immediately underneath the area of rotation, I don't really see anything as far as a correlation coefficient drop, but there's probably a tornado on the ground with this. Also looks like there may be a couple of more satellite tornadoes spinning up along this, and they do have tornado warnings already on them. So if you do live in Cedarvale, please take shelter immediately. There could definitely be a couple of tornadoes, maybe 1 or 2 to potentially 3 tornadoes on the ground right now along the RFD of the main tornado. So definitely make sure you're taking shelter if you live in Cedardale or Cambridge, Grand Summit, Dexter. Please be hopefully you're in if you live in Dexter, hopefully you're in shelter right now. Again, main city under the majority of the risk right now is Dexter, Kansas, I think. Yeah, Dexter, Kansas. If you live in the affected area, please take shelter immediately. Again, there's probably definitely a tornado on the ground with this right now. That is definitely a area of very strong rotation there. A very tight, very strong rotation. There's probably a tornado on the ground with that look. Definitely looks like there is a tornado on the ground. Can't really confirm with correlation coefficient. Correlation coefficient has just been so bad lately, as well as the rotation on a lot of these storms has just been overly messy and extremely hard to determine. But This one is definitely a mean look here. Definitely some really strong rotation, very tight rotation on that as well. And then we could also see some additional spin up along the RFD gust front here. And that's why this other tornado warnings here. If you live in a Cedar Vale or Cedar Vale, Hellwinds, Cambridge, or Grand Summit, please take shelter immediately. I really hope people in Dexter were taking shelter because that passed breathtakingly close. Again, that's really, really strong and mean looking rotation. These storms up here are still going. These storms up here are still going. Don't even know really what's going on with this. Definitely looks like we may have a little bit of a correlation coefficient drop, so there very well could potentially be a tornado on the ground with this. There could definitely be rotation here. It's really hard to tell, but it definitely looks like it may be associated with a correlation coefficient drop. So definitely make sure you're taking shelter if you live in the affected area. This is mainly rural areas, and it is to the east of Hiawatha, and to the north of Robinson. If you live in Robinson, please take shelter immediately. And then we also have another tornado warning. This one is for Ravenwood and Parnell. That's definitely some really tight rotation there. You'd probably have a tornado on the ground with that. I can't really confirm though because it's just contaminated out of all you can imagine. But definitely could see a tornado on the ground with that as of right now. Again, if you live in Ravenwood, please take shelter immediately. Other tornado warning here. This is extremely messy rotation. I don't even know if I can really confirm that to be a tornado or not. But I guess tornado warning for mainly rural areas to the northwest of the Oklahoma City region. Into the to the northwest side, slightly northwest of Tulsa. Then you also have this tornado warning here. This is definitely some rotation. Definitely some very visible rotation there. Can't confirm a correlation coefficient drop, but if you live in Eakley, Lookaba, Hinton, Bangor, please take shelter immediately. And then we also continue to see tornado warnings getting pumped out for this one other storm further down in the south. This was PDS tornado warning. I don't know if it is now. This is still a PDS tornado warning, even while it's radar indicated. We can definitely see some pretty decent rotation on this, though. Definitely some really decent rotation on there. And there could definitely be a tornado on the ground right now, but it's so contaminated. But there's definitely definitely potentially a tornado on the ground, but thankfully it's in mainly rural areas now. We have 9 tornado warnings and 16 severe